How is it to be in Holland for the first time?
Well, I knew, and one of the great things about tennis is that you meet people from everywhere, and especially as an American, I think it's some crazy number, like 90% of people don't leave the country. So for me, I consider myself very lucky from a young age to experience different things in different cultures, which frankly is lost on us sometimes. So I had a decent understanding from the guys, Shang and Richard, and a lot of the guys that I've met. You hear stories, and so you never understand something until you're there and you see it for yourself. But I've heard great things. Our country's so young, so to see something with history and that was kind of built without the framework of something massive in mind, it was it's great for me to see. And I haven't been outside the country since I retired, so it's nice to go back and see it again and kind of get kind of learn about it all over again. Sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, so it's nice to kind of be back here in Europe.
Almost, you were at the US Open 2014 with Marty Fish. What happened?
Well, I would have liked to have played for Marty. It was nothing to do with any sort of comeback or anything for me. Marty never, because of health problems, he never got a proper send-off. I would have liked to have played one more with him. He asked if I'd be interested. I said no, but for you I would be. But I guess it required, since for an example, John McEnroe has never officially retired, so he could have played the U.S. Open, but since I filed my papers like they ask you to do, I would have had to have been back in the drug testing program for 3 months. And so common sense says that if I was going to ever do drugs, it probably wouldn't be for one doubles tournament 2 years after I retired, but common sense didn't prevail. I would have liked to have done it for Marty, but no, it ends up not being a big deal.
How was it to be so successful at a young age?
Yeah, I don't know. You look back and it all happens fast. You go from, in my case, I went from being 50 in the world in juniors to number one in the men's in 3 years, and so it just, frankly, you're too dumb to look around and realize what's going on. It was all so fast, and I just I enjoyed it. It was great. I mean, it's never, you hear a lot of people who have success and they kind of begrudge it or bemoan it or tell you all the problems with having success at a young age. There's nothing bad about it. It's you can't choose timing on great things, and I was lucky to have experienced it at all. It just came sooner than most.
Do you miss it?
Well, there's two questions. The tour I don't miss that much. Tennis, I miss a lot, but I can still play. I miss tennis at really weird times. I don't go to big events. I've been to one tournament. I went to the U.S. Open once in the last 2 years. I don't need to be around the tournaments. I miss being around the guys at the track at 8 o'clock in the morning when it's cold out, and I miss all the really weird parts about training and about the game. But I have a very simple life back home. We live out in the middle of the woods, and I'm happy there.
Can you tell me how it is to be a sports commentator?
Fox launched a national network August 17th of last year, so I do a show that their nightly news show in various capacities, hosting, interviewing. Hardly any of it has to do with tennis, but it's fun. It's nice to learn about different things, and I've done radio and podcasts, so it's nice because I've always tried to not lose sight of. I didn't want to be the guy who went back, and most of the time you hear people go back and start talking about sports again and they pretend like it was easy, and I never want to be that guy. So it's kind of walking people through the paces of what actually, you see one game, but what the process is to get to that moment, and so it's been fun though. It's learning something new. Coming up with. It's a little ironic because I always gave journalists a hard time when I was playing, and so it's always fun when I'm on the other side and you walk in and you see a football player and he's going, "Oh, you? Okay." So it's been fun though. It's been nice.
Which sports?
All sports, every sport. It's a nightly news show, so whatever happens that day. So they had the American football on yesterday for Thanksgiving, so it would have been about that today.
Yeah. How was it to interview the guy who gave you so much trouble in the center court, Roger Federer?
It was nice. I interviewed Roger for our show last year at the U.S. Open, and it was cool because we had never talked about any of the matches. We had never. He had done a lot of really cool things during my career. Always defended me publicly, and so it's funny. It went from an interview to a conversation very quickly, which I thought was nice, and that was best case scenario. And he was very gracious, and 2 days before a slam, the last thing you want to do is any sort of press. And so for him to make time for an old friend, I thought that was nice. And it was cool. It was fun to hear his thoughts. And there are some things that after years and years of playing against each other, I didn't know about him, and you learn new things. So it was cool. It was nice.
What's actually the main reason that you quit professional tennis?
I don't know. My shoulder was bad. I would have had to have an operation at some point. But honestly, it's not a fun story to write about, because I won my first round of the U.S. Open. I woke up the next morning and that was it. And I held a press conference that afternoon. But going to bed the night before, I thought I was still a professional tennis player. I woke up the next morning and just started thinking, and my wife was out doing something, so I texted her. I said, "You probably need to come home. I'm having stupid thoughts." And that was it. It was a number of things. I always made up I was never as talented as Rafa or Roger, and my game was pretty limited to a couple of things, but I worked real hard. And I feel like I had to put in a lot more time. And so I never wanted to be the guy. I could have not done that and coasted home and been, whatever in the world, but that would have driven me crazy. I still wanted to be able to play when I stopped. And so I won 2 out of my last 4 or 5 events on tour, but once I lost the belief that I could win a slam, which I didn't know if I could do, it became work for me. And it's not something I ever wanted, because tennis was my first love, and I didn't want to treat it like a job. And I was lucky enough to not view it as a job until I was 30.
Were you always nervous before a match?
Yes. Well, and the thing is, it's I probably talk too much, but in nerves as it equates to sports, people view it as a negative, right? It has a negative connotation. But my theory is, it's just, we do the same thing as everyone else. It's just on TV and people watch it and whatever. But if any of you are nervous about something, if there's a huge story that you have to get right, you're going to be nervous about it because you care about it. So the times where I wasn't nervous was the problem.
What are your expectations about this weekend?
Oh God, I want to make it through without breaking something, meaning my body, not rackets. I don't. Yeah, I don't know that. I heard. I think Jonas Björkman was saying that Sheng had practiced every day for 3 months. I can promise you, I have not practiced. I thought 6 times last month was good. So that made me a little nervous.